set? Okay. This is the Wednesday, January 2nd meeting of the Raleigh Conservation Commission. The meeting is hereby called to order under the authority of Mass General Law 131, Section 40, Town of Raleigh Wetlands Protection Bylaw, Stormwater Management and Erosion Control Bylaw. Notice is given that both a video and audio recording will be made of this meeting. The agent will now call the roll for attendance.
Thank you. Arthur Page.
Yep.
Kurt Turner.
Here.
Bob Garner.
Here.
Judy Keys.
Here.
Dan Shinnick.
Yep.
Sam Strife.
Here.
Howard Vogel.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, we have perfect attendance and a quorum to boot.
Okay. First thing on the administrative would be payroll and/or vendor bills.
If I may request approval of payroll. Little holiday vacation time in there. Good measure. And this is the hour sheet. Your review. Thank you.
Time the room warms up and we time to go.
That'll be summer.
I don't know, I keep boosting the heat up and it seems to be making much of an impression.
What about?
Actually two, yeah. There's one in this corner and then diagonally opposite, there's another one underneath the COA. Spurting out steam, it's like a little sauna went down there. At least it was this morning when things were hissing away. Old buildings. Thank you. Do you also get a statement from the charge card company? So we had made a purchase of some postage for use in the office. Been mailing a bunch of things. I was told that was probably a good time to do it because I think somewhere towards the third week of January, there's a possibility the postage might be going up.
I thought,
Possibility, but who knows? If they're shut down, maybe that stuff won't happen.
Buy some more forever stamps, is that what you're saying?
I thought, yeah.
Possibly. That's what my wife said. She said, go buy some forever stamps. I said, well, I already did. She goes, then you're all set.
You know you're getting old when you start using up your forever stamps.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Thank you very much. So that takes care of that. And we do have some minutes. Now, there was a set of minutes that was sent out today.
Yeah, sent out,
Would you
just
like
this
me to
afternoon.
hand-
It's up to the individual people. I happen to be, for some reason around 5 o'clock, I panicked and said, was this gonna be a 7 o'clock meeting? So I had to look, and then I see you had sent that.
I have hard copies for anyone who'd like to look at them.
Which one?
These are for
You went out this
December
afternoon?
4th,
Yeah, I saw that one.
last meeting.
Yeah, I saw it.
Anybody?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't see it. Came up as I was.
It's okay. Debbie technically had to wait for me to come back to look at them and make editorial suggestions. You all set?
Yeah.
while they're reading, I just would like to note that, since it's not on the agenda or otherwise, that the Board of Selectmen did not accept the Conservation Commission's recommendation with regard to the hunting article, and they voted unanimously not to approve the gentleman's application to hunt Mr. Lee's.
Mr. Lee. Keep me to it, I just got the official decision, I was gonna email that around to you folks.
We can still do that.
Well, I don't know, it's just be an extra email that you already know the answer to.
And the other item that I already know the answer to, and maybe the rest of you do too, is the next item about the conservation restriction, and Vanessa Hall Johnson has communicated with you and indicated that Greenbelt will approve the change that town council wanted with regard to.
Yeah, I'm just,
And she
Wait,
contacted us on it?
She emailed Brent, I believe.
right. Yeah, I was really hoping when I got back that the signed, notarized copy was going to be here to put forth in front of you folks for consideration, but
And so many
she
long
did
weekends,
say
it's
that
hard
her
to get
director
anything.
was
Yeah.
taking off over the holidays, so. So shall we start consideration of the minutes?
Sure. That's good. Wait for Judy.
Oh,
All right,
sorry.
all right, we have,
She was so like concealing it that I didn't know she was still reading it. I apologize.
we have 3 sets of minutes. We have the December 4th, 2018, the May 11th, 2011, and May 31st, 2011. We'll do these one at a time. Everybody have a chance to take a look at the December 4th, 2018. Was there any questions, problems?
The only, you have to check on this, in the last item, the enforcement order, I think Brad Jameson is I-E-S-O-N.
Oh,
Oh, spelling of his name, I will
Just
verify
check.
that before we memorialize the minutes.
okay.
She's great.
If the name is to be entered correctly, do I hear a motion to accept? Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous, approved, thank you.
The May 11th, 2011. Everybody had a chance to take a look at that? Any questions, problems? Anything on that?
No.
Do I hear a motion to accept that as presented?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous, approved, thank you.
May 31st, 2011. Everybody have a chance to take a look at that?
Yes,
Any problems, questions?
and seen by me.
Do I hear a motion to accept that as presented?
So moved.
Second?
Take your pick.
Fight over it. All right. All in favor? Just trying to see where-
Okay, unanimous, approved, thank you.
How far are we behind in the minutes?
Well, that depends upon
Slowly
your
getting
definition.
caught up.
That depends upon your definition.
Yeah, how
of
far are we
behind.
going back?
No, I
guess that's
mean-
the question.
We're going back as far as I got stuff to go back.
Okay.
Good.
Which is a long,
Several
still
more
a long
years.
while.
Oh, okay.
Still a long while.
Yeah.
There's, so for true confessions, when I was first hired, I was hired to work 20 hours a week. And then I was told that I was expected to show up at the 2 to 3 hour selectmen meetings every Monday during the season. And I said, well, then I think, is there any consideration of making it 23 hours? Whatever. Plus, the commission at that point in time was meeting every 2 weeks, which,
I bet it was busy back then, though. I was involved in a couple of them, yeah.
It was, but my hours were gradually increased over time, and I convinced the commission that a 21-day cycle was
Right.
more beneficial to being able to actually cycle through and complete paperwork instead of just continuously generating paperwork and not having a chance to address it on that. So we will be going back in time to address various minutes things. But there also are minutes from that period of time that were done and completed.
Right.
So it's just that,
All right, we're a little ahead of schedule, but that brings us to the next item, which is 7:45 PM.
actually,
Yep.
may I belay
Please.
that? Just,
Yeah.
and I'm sorry, just, I had a conversation with the town administrator today, Debbie Egan. I know this isn't on the agenda, but it's not really anything more than just to request some assistance from one or two commissioners in regards to working on the bylaw, to propose that just either one or two commissioners interface with me to provide me some help in, as we work on some language, and it was suggested that I possibly think of options in regards to it. Not necessarily to try to do a whole rewrite, but to just focus in. But it was suggested, instead of trying to do a committee structure, that if there were one or two commissioners, and to be quite honest with you, Kurt Turner's name was mentioned.
Yes.
And so I didn't know if Kurt, and if there's another commissioner that would be willing to volunteer that I could send drafts to, and we would just be interacting and just proposing the drafts, and then bringing the drafts to all the commission, so just rough them out, in a sense.
Right.
And,
Well, we went through a similar thing at the cemetery, because we realized we were charging way too little. And what we did is I went around to virtually every cemetery north of Boston
Right.
and up to New Hampshire, and we got everybody's rates, and we put everything down. And, I mean, we were very low, and some of them were tremendously high.
right,
And we wanted to stay on the low side, because you can't jump all at once.
right.
And,
Well,
we
part-
went through quite a thing, and it was rather shocking.
And part of this is driven by the fact that we have some resource areas that the present fee structure, because it's incorporated in the bylaw, it's not subject to, capable of being revised. And I've also been going back through early documentation, 2002, 2003, when the commission was working with Brackett and Lucas, and the town council was Steve Fletcher, and they were working on creation of the bylaw and its passage at town meeting in fall 2003. And then by the time the Attorney General approved it, that was January 2004, which is why the bylaw has an effective date of January 2004, because it has to be approved by the Attorney General's office.
So if those-
Well,
But if those fees haven't been changed in that time, those fees must have been tremendously high at the time.
well, see, what I have found so far, that there was absolutely no scrutiny, it appears, applied to how they might play out. In other words, I can't find that any,
But they didn't do any analysis?
well, look at the
to
same
see
thing
what
I did
the-
with the stormwater erosion control bylaw, to get an idea as to how the stormwater and erosion control bylaw, where one might want to set that limit for how many square feet trigger application. I looked at single-family home applications, notices of intent that had come in from folks like Mr. DeCoulis or whatever, and specifically took a size above that once I developed an average. I can't find anything sussed out that an application from earlier in the year was grabbed and that they just did an example of, oh, this is what it would look like. The other thing I don't see is, apparently there is a state statute, and I'll have to get Mr. Tom Mullen, present town council, one of our town councils, mentioned that there's a state statute that it's supposed to be reflective of the administrative costs that a commission incurs in their review and their monitoring or whatever. So yes, it's okay to have an application fee structure that might, for a larger project, also gets larger, but some of the fees that we've recently seen don't appear to have any relevancy to the amount of time, staff time, commission time that get devoted to it. So looking at the fees and trying to figure out how to put something that's reflective of the type of projects, as well as maybe, we've also, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think until very recently we ever saw a solar project. And I also don't believe the town of Rowley, and I mean, I don't know what went on with the demolished shopping center, but that's the only other thing I can think of that generates large amounts of square
Some of the
footage.
industrial park, but that was, been there
Yeah.
for a while, most of it.
When I first came here, I was working on the permitting of Forest Ridge with Gateway
Right.
2
Right.
Realty, which is an industrial park. But it was not generating huge amounts. It would have if it was in the zone 2. So anyway, I'm probably getting more down here. But anyway, I would welcome the fact, and if Commissioner Turner would be
I'd
amenable.
gladly help out if I can. I don't know if anybody
It's
else.
mostly going to be looking at the proposed language type thing.
Yeah, see, I'm not that great at spelling.
I'd be
so-
glad to help too, if I can.
Okay,
Yeah.
then if that's acceptable, then we'll start that
It would
process.
also be helpful to look at, similar towns nearby, see what they do, such as Newbury and Ipswich. 'Cause
Oh, well, that's-
They both are coastal and they're close by.
Yeah,
See
and
how
I
it is.
think I may have mentioned that that's going to be my first move, but I did feel it was relevant to try and look back if there was some past documentation as to when.
No, you won't find any.
Oh, I found a whole bunch, but like I said, it doesn't seem to address the specific things that we're talking about now.
Yeah, we definitely should, so, okay.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to delay the first agenda item, but I was hoping for.
All right, well, that brings us to our first agenda item. It's continued request to amend the order of conditions, DEP number 63-0625 at Land of Daniels Road, map 9, parcel lot 23, Tompkins DeGiris Trust, Bruce Tompkins trustee, a request to amend proposed construction of duplex buildings with associated roadways, driveways, utilities, stormwater facilities, grading, possibly within 100 feet of a vegetative bordering wetlands. Got that backwards. A buffer zone of bordering vegetated wetlands. You have it?
Good evening. We've submitted a peer review to Horsley and Witten, and we're waiting to hear, which I believe they're going to approve. And we should be hearing within a week or two.
Okay.
Well-
So theoretically before January 22nd?
Actually, I'm not sure that that's true.
Oh,
Because I went on vacation, I believe, the 18th, and on the 19th, Mr. DeCoulis submitted a number of pieces of information, but I can't find that we ever received any PDFs. I don't believe we received any electronic files at all. I can find that nothing came in via email. Like I said, this is dated December 19th, so I started looking on December 18th. And you apparently hand-delivered this to the office because it didn't have any
Right,
postage
right.
on it. So we do need to receive everything that's listed down on your memo of December 19th. We need to receive all those things in PDF format. 2 plans, and the soil evaluations, and this checklist for stormwater report, which you provided a signed, stamped copy, so that's great. You had inquired of Debbie Cunningham, Conservation Secretary, and she communicated with you on December 17th that page 3 of Horsley and Witten's last review requests a revised operations and maintenance plan to be submitted for review. I did not find that in this packet of information that you submitted on the 19th, and so So that's all we're looking for at this point in time. And with those materials provided to us in electronic format, as well as a hard copy of the O&M plan, we can send them to Horsley and Witten, and they just have to give a fairly cursory review to just make sure. I think the O&M plan is the only thing they'd actually have to read, and we'll be all set. So we would love for you to turn that information prior to us getting any closer to the January 22nd meeting, so that we can possibly consider issuance at the
All right.
meeting of the 22nd, if that's possible, John.
All
Will
right.
do.
Thank
So
you.
we'll pencil you in for the next meeting of January 22nd, 2019.
Yes, sir.
I will move to continue the meeting to that date.
Second.
Pardon?
I will move to.
Yep, second.
Everywhere.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, John.
Stay warm. Wait,
So the next item is,
Gateway.
yep.
Didn't we talk on this last time?
Well, they only asked for a certificate of compliance for their wetlands permit.
Right.
Their DEP order of conditions, they neglected to ask simultaneously for the stormwater management permit, which we reminded them of when we realized that they had both permits still outstanding.
All right, the next item is a certificate of compliance request, and it's a new request for the certificate of completion, SMP number 18-2016, 414 Havel Street, map 14, parcel 34, lot 1, Gateway 2, Trust of 1997.
So my verbal recommendation to the commission, if you so choose, is that they have completed. We have received all documentation as well as a professional letter from the engineer of record for the project, as well as documentation of the completion of the invasive species suppression and control program, as well as the wetlands replication and the planting of the stormwater basin that's along the street frontage, and all of those things have successfully vegetated.
Yes, I looked at them the other night.
Recommend that if the commission so chooses, to issue a complete certificate of completion with ongoing conditions.
Do I hear such a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yes, the other night I went out to eat and I took a stroll over there and it. yeah,
Didn't it look
came out-
nice?
Yeah, very nice. Water's a little higher than,
Yeah.
but it is across the road too, so.
And we may have covered this, but I'm going to be asking Mr. Coughlin, DeRosa Environmental, who provided the booklets tonight, has offered to go do a review of that wetland system to see if it's possible to certify it as a vernal pool. They saw egg masses
Yes,
in
right.
regards to their activities, and I just need to get, they've said they'd be glad to do it, and I just need to get Mr. Coughlin's permission, which I'm sure, since it won't, I don't believe it's gonna cost a cent, just allow us access onto the property. So
Right.
I think you'll, hopefully, I'm hoping he's been very cooperative on
He's been
such
very
things.
good.
As well as it'll allow us to utilize that project as kind of a example of successful.
Mhm. Great.
I have a question, I guess, relative to permission to enter property as, with regard to orders of conditions. Do we have a standard boilerplate clause that allows us to enter a property of an applicant up through the completion of receipt of the certificate of completion? And if not, perhaps we ought to have a boilerplate provision in there so that some of these things
yeah.
drag on for years, and every once in a while it comes up that you need permission. Well, I don't know why you need to if it's in the original order of conditions.
It's
We-
in all of our issued orders as well as our stormwater management permits.
As soon as you take it out, it
And-
says you're
And actually,
giving
as soon as
access.
they file an application, the Wetlands Protection Act itself gives the commission the ability to enter onto the property just by their submitting of an application to the commission. They authorize the commission and its staff to enter onto
Once
the property
we
for the
close it.
purposes of administrating and regulating the Wetlands Protection Act. It does not allow you like to go water skiing on their pond.
Well, once, you know, once we've approved, to close the hearing and approve things, and the order has been sent out and whatnot, the fact that a certificate of completion doesn't always get done for years and afterwards, does that permission to enter still valid up through that point in time?
I would say so.
If it's not,
It-
it should be spelled out.
Well, okay, so you bring up a point. So when the order lapses and expires, we do requests, so say we find an old unexpired order.
Which we do all
I
the
mean,
time.
excuse me, an old expired order, which we find a lot of times. We do have a standard form that we re-request, because when the order's expired, there's the question there as to whether our permission to enter has therefore also expired with that document, because it's no longer considered active.
So that's why I'm suggesting that
So we
put
do
make
have-
it clear in the order of conditions that this permission extends all the way through.
Well,
Your
we
completion
get
of
that to be
certificate of compliance.
we get that to be reauthorized.
Well,
Because, well, again, legally we can't, because the,
You can if you make it legal.
no, well, but you can't make it legal with an issued permit that has an expiration date.
I would disagree on that, but anyway,
I don't know when you'd have to, Kurt,
after what?
go in after a project is.
Well, I
completed.
do
Well,
an
if-
inspection for certificate of compliance, but like I
Yeah.
said, if the order is in an expired state, I do have a form that I submit to them that they reissue permission for the purpose of doing monitoring or verification that the project is in fact.
I'm not being critical of that, I think that's an exercise of caution and a duplication doesn't hurt, but I think that legally you can condition it such that it's clear from the beginning that this goes all the way through that process by wording the conditions properly.
I'll be more than happy to find that out, since I'm gonna be interacting with town council on this effort to possibly amend our
I mean, it's
wetlands
a-
bylaw, so that's a valid.
So
that's
the
a
idea
valid
would be is
question.
that you would still have, even though a document has expired, the condition has expired, the idea that if you wrote it incorrectly, would you still have the right to go on a piece of property, even though the actual document has expired? So the thing that you signed up for, that you agreed to, is expired, but we would still have the right to take something, do something that was in that
Yeah, but
expired
the question
clause.
has to be phrased a different way. Is there language that you can put
Put
in
in.
as a condition that would allow the permission to enter to still be
valid,
valid
even
beyond
if-
the expiration
Expert.
date
That's a
of
good
the
question.
individual permit? That's, I think, the core
The-
question that we're being asked.
And one of the methods of doing that might be that a violation of the original authorization would occur if the certificate of completion was not filed after 3 years, or whatever the date of expiration would be.
Yeah. To be honest with you, though, that's usually in any issued permit that doesn't have closure is usually a blemish on the title and does not allow the property owner to get clear title. I've never had anyone balk at signing and giving permission to enter onto the property
Yeah, 'cause they
when
want
they
it
need
done.
to do it,
You
because
want it done.
usually they're
You're trying to do something.
99 times out of 100, they're trying to facilitate closure and sale of the property, and they don't
They can't do it.
they don't hinder your ability to enter onto the
Yeah,
property
yeah.
for the purposes of closing.
I can see that, but I'm thinking of the situation where the conditions weren't all met,
Mhm.
and they didn't try to get a certificate of completion. And there was, because the conditions weren't met, there's some concern about what's happening on it.
Right.
And they're still out and living.
They still own it, and
They
they
own-
probably have no reason to want us to come on.
Yeah, at that point, in
At
time,
that
they don't
point,
want
they
you.
want you to stay
I think
away.
that's what,
And, I mean, it also
Haven't
involves,
faced that
it
somehow.
also involves an as-built plan, is also one of our requirements, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
that can go on and on for years as well. And the reference should incorporate both the as-built plan and the completion and the certificate of compliance, or whatever the appropriate is. I'm confused, we're talking about certificate of compliance and completion here within same two
Well,
lines. Are they
completion
different?
is for the stormwater management permits, and
Okay.
compliance is for orders of conditions under the Wetlands Protection Act and our wetlands bylaw.
Good to know.
Tried to make it sound a little different because it's confusing enough as it is, where the Board of Health under Title V has certificates of compliance for construction and installation of sanitary sewage systems, so.
Yeah.
So people have in the past, I got my certificate of compliance, and yes, you did from the Board of Health, but you didn't get it from the Concom.
All right. So that, we've taken care of that.
Except now I need to, we voted, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we haven't
Yep.
signed
I
it.
need to have you folks sign them. If you'd be so kind. Great.
Thank you.
Hearing reports on television about beaver problems in other towns.
Yeah, they just got a 104 pounder the other day.
104 pounds?
Yeah.
Where?
130 pounds is the record in the United States. It was caught in Topsfield, well, 8 Thanksgivings ago. Yeah. Oh, you didn't see them. They look the size of a beaver.
yeah.
Guy brought it down, showed it to
I
me.
remember,
It was in his little mini truck. I'm sitting in my excavator working down at Bradley Palmer, and he comes in beeping the horn going like that. I thought he had a bear, because I'm up in the machine and I
Yeah.
can see it over the side of the truck. Yeah.
jeez.
And how big was it?
That was 130 pounds. He just got 102 the other day.
Beavers.
140 is the world's record.
Oh, my goodness.
Now,
That's
do
Canada.
they sell the pelts then? Do people even want beaver pelts anymore?
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, now we're
It's better off just bouncing fat. Well, that brings us to permits and enforcements. And do we have anything?
Ongoing stuff, I'll have more information. I haven't, not performed any site visits today.
Anybody want any cookies?
That's all she wrote?
All right.
I haven't had dinner yet, so.
I'm not even buying this either.
Anything anybody want to comment on?
Happy New Year.
Yeah, yeah.
No?
I just want one little comment, I don't know if you guys have gone through this before. So, we do our part on a certain thing, whether it's a hunting permit or, wanted the conservation land for the trade at the solar project. And then the selectmen make a different decision, right?
Why ask us in the first place if you're not
Well,
listening to us?
yeah, I'm just wondering, is there ever
Maybe some.
maybe, in the business world, you'd get an explanation.
Well, remember,
Why?
in this particular situation, the specific parcels that that they were requesting permission to hunt on were under the care and custody of the
Sure.
Conservation Commission. So to the selectmen, they therefore considered this
As a step
board
one.
to be the quote-unquote owner of the property.
Yeah.
Now, it's still municipal property, and the selectmen are the permit granting authority that's
Sure.
named in that particular general bylaw. So there so there was
all I'm
a,
asking for is an
Well,
I have
so
no
that's the explanation.
explanation of
is that it was
why
two-step.
they have the override. I'm looking for an explanation of, I'd just be interested to see what their, especially where it's unanimous, you know, what was their, maybe it would help us in the future
Well, remember
with our decisions.
remember the police chief's comments?
Oh, yeah, that's right, he said no way, right there.
I think
That was the.
the police chief, as well as
Yeah, he was very against it.
well, I provided an analysis to the selectmen that named a number of different residential property owners who were all within 500 feet of various portions
Of that.
of that conservation land, because that's what we had done before when we last had a request to hunt, which,
No, just because I was just wondering,
Well, I was at the meeting,
yeah.
oh,
and I provided Brent with a summary of it, which I don't know if you have handy, but one of the selectmen asked if Mr. Lees would have to be in touch with all of those
Oh, yeah, to get their permission?
property owners, and there were quite a few of them, and I said I didn't know the exact answer, but I believed that to be the case. I also summarized the discussion that took place at the board here in terms of the pros and cons and how it broke out.
Sure.
And Selectman Peterson, I believe, started off the discussion indicating, as far as the selectmen were concerned, and indicated that he was not in favor of allowing this particular application, and he pointed out that the selectmen, that was news to me, had received another application since then.
Oh.
And he and or other people on the board commented that they didn't want to have to, the impression I had was that they didn't want to have to handle all of these things on a case-by-case basis.
Can make sense.
And Mr. Peterson and others pointed out that the town is growing and it might be well to just avoid this in the future. And there seemed to be general support, at least among 3 selectmen, that in support of a change in the town bylaw to ban
All hunting on.
all hunting on town land in the future. And I
What
think-
is all banned in town? They just did that.
Well, I think that has to go before town meeting.
Well, say they just banned the hunting on our land?
They banned Mr. Lee's, they
Right now,
didn't
you
approve
have to,
Mr. Lee's.
in town of Raleigh, you have to get landowners permission, so if you're gonna hunt on town land, you have to get permission. So it is banned, and if they're not gonna give out permission, because none of them are hunters, then they did ban it.
You can still do.
Yeah,
Even
municipal,
though you've
municipal
lived
property
there
owner.
for
Yeah.
65 years and you've hunted all these, and I'm sure Mr. Lee has lived there all his life and hunted all that. But see, if you have 50 acres of land and you wanna hunt that, but it's nice to know that you can go around in the other areas. He might not even been hunting on because the deer doesn't actually drop right away when you shoot with a bow and arrow. So, but anyway, I won't start that argument because they already finished it on it, but I
Yeah,
wish they
they
wouldn't
did.
ask us in the future if they're not gonna listen to us.
Well, they listened. But it was a 4-3 vote,
Yeah.
like the Supreme Court.
Yeah. Well, the other one, like I said, I was also interested in the solar thing, where we made a decision, and then they decided not. Now, and once again, I don't necessarily care. They're going to make their decisions, and they have the right to make those decisions. All I would think is it would be common courtesy to go to the
You might as
board
well
and
stop
just
right
tell the
there.
board and say, hey, guess what? We've made a decision based on the following reasons. And the only reason I want to know those reasons is that in the future, if we're presented with similar cases, and by the way, you say you're amending the bylaws, or there's a potential bylaw amendment, so maybe that's the outcome or the consequence of that, I don't know. But, you're sitting here kind of in the dark, not knowing, maybe that's the way government runs, I don't know. I'm just saying, I'm not gonna disagree with their decision. I would like to know why they made their decision the way, especially if I'm part of a process that leads up to that
Well,
decision.
Don't hold your
especially-
breath in this town.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There is a way of
Especially-
finding out. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I was just gonna add in, especially if that was not a decision, the only time we had made such a decision.
Yeah, we've already made them.
Because we've made
Exactly.
them in the past.
Exactly.
Okay?
There was a
In
couple
this
people there
case,
that were involved in
they-
the anti on it, that's why,
Yeah, I know, which. in
which is
my-
dirty,
In my view is not correct.
right? But that's out of our hands,
That's out of our
it's not
hands.
conservation, there's no wetlands or anything, so.
There's a way you can find this out very easily.
Yeah.
Go on the town website, and you can bring up the video of the meeting,
And you'll
and
see
you
the
can watch it
discussion.
all.
Okay,
The
good point.
the discussion of those 2 points was over on that particular date by about 8:15. So you don't have to go beyond that in terms of watching the video.
Okay.
And, the discussion was extensive, and each of the selectmen had their say on all that, and they indicated why.
Okay, now I'm gonna look at it. Thank you, Ed.
The one thing that I heard that I found interesting, and I did not think of ahead of time, is the fact that that money goes into the general fund.
Right.
That fee, oh, it does.
Yes.
On the solar fees, yeah. That
Yeah.
was
Well,
a big
on the-
consideration.
On the land use fees. That's all of,
All bylaw fees.
all of our bylaw
It-
fees
it
go
let-
into the general fund. They don't go,
Unless you pass a bylaw creating what they call a revolving fund that specifically proportions that money for some type of usage, like the Board of Health has a revolving fund. That's where money from
So-
their fees
so
goes in
potentially-
and then let me finish, and then pays for the cleanup, hazardous waste, pickup days,
Sure.
metal, recycling days. So that money does have a purpose in terms of providing demonstrable benefit to the citizens of the
Sure.
town of Raleigh. It doesn't just go to provide new curtains or new furniture in the health department. It is specifically used, but that has to be set up and that has to be authorized through
Yeah,
the.
but in this case, it was general
The
fund.
FinCom committee, and then it has to go before town meeting to set up something like that.
The loss of the 43,000 was the primary consideration on the solar facility turn
Yeah.
down.
Say that again,
The loss of the 43,000 in town funds, they considered that to be significant.
that they didn't wanna lose that money.
Yes, I mean, budgets are tight all over the place, the pressure on town's budget from the school committees, the school budget is enormous.
Like I said, maybe I just, once again, my only concern is that we made a decision based on a criterion of what we thought was important. And, maybe we're looking at it like this, maybe they're looking at it like that.
Yeah.
All I would expect is courtesy and diligence, right, would be for us to get something that says, we've made the following decision. By the way, the reason we have is that we feel at this point that the loss of that funding has a bigger effect, and we think that funding could be used appropriately, and that the value of getting that extra land is, having that money has more value than getting that land. Fine, but just let me know. That's what I'm saying.
Can I give it a,
I'm just
all right,
making
do I hear a motion to adjourn?
so moved.
Before we get ourselves in trouble. Second, all in favor?
Where exactly does the money go? Just in the
Close to the
funds.
record.
Yeah, well, wait till.
Like it better
everything-
if it was allocated somehow.